So, for all of you peeps here at Wellness Wave Creations and all of my followers, I would love to introduce you today to my beautiful guest, my highest esteemed colleague in Ayurveda, Dr. Jaisri Lambert. And I would like to say thank you so much for being here with us today, especially on this wonderful, auspicious day when the sun burned Venus right through and gave it new birth for today, June the 4th, 2024. And we're going to have a new morning star of Venus, a lot of abundance. And I wanted to have this supportive cosmological energy guiding this video today and this recording with Jaisri Ji. So without any further ado, let me introduce her to you guys. Jaisri began studying and teaching natural therapies in 1983 and came to Ayurveda in 1986. Can you guys believe that? When was 1986? It wasn't yesterday, right? And gradually grew her knowledge and experience while serving and learning mainly in the United States and Canada. Jaishree received the degree of Ayurveda doctor in 2017 from the National Ayurveda Medical Association of the United States. Dr. Jaishree has over 35 years of integrated clinical practice internationally. Dr. Jaishree developed specialized mastery under her mentor, Dr. Vasant Led's loving guidance since 1988 to present, beginning with a focused 12-year apprenticeship, developing skills in Nadi Pariksha. And for those of you that don't know, it's a pulse assessment, Turiya therapy, applied Marma Chikitsa for resolving psycho-spiritual trauma, you guys, which we talk about at this channel quite a lot. Ashtavida Pariksha, which is an Ayurveda clinical assessment, and Panchakarma, which is a cleansing and rejuvenation science. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that a lot. Dr. Lambert was a founding member of the National Ayurveda Medical Association in the 90s, a founder of Ayurveda seminars and consulting in 2004, the Share Ayurveda Conference in 2018, and recently the Canada Ayurveda Research and Education Foundation at age 70. Now that I call a gumption to life. And I could not be more honored than being here with you today and have a phenomenal conversation about what is really keeping me always excited about Ayurveda. And that is going to be the 5 elements today, you guys, the 3 doshas and what those are, and 2 major things that you might have heard of, you might have not, which is Vikriti and Prakriti, or I should say Prakriti and Vikriti. And I want to pick Dr. Jaishree Lambert's mind as to why all of these things are so crucial in our healing journeys. So without any further ado, Jaishree ji, take it away. Tell us, what is your take on, firstly, Prakriti, our constitution? Why is it so important to know?
Sure, it's a lovely question. And before we get to it, thank you so much, Orshi, for organizing this conversation together and sharing it with others who may be new to Ayurveda. Thank you for glowing somehow introduction, which sounds grand in the retrospective, but I can tell you, plodding forward day to day, it was simply a desire to keep good company because our Ayurveda community is, very dedicated seekers. And this is one of the primary questions: what is Prakriti and what is Vikriti? Because people have often heard Prakriti is my Ayurveda constitution, individualized. So it is imprinted at the time of conception with the current state of the doshas of mother and father. That is to say, if father's coming home stressed from the office, if mother's coming after a stressful work day with the family or job or both, then it is the union of that moment in their lives, what is occurring for each of them, and the state of their reproductive system. So, reproductive system is the deepest tissue system in the body, which is most protected by the structure of the human body with the various dhatu levels or tissue levels. We'll use a few Sanskrit words here because Sanskrit is the language of Ayurveda's origin, medical scriptures, texts, sacred texts. So we are referring to certain terminologies in Sanskrit which are very pregnant with meaning and can tell us a great deal about, for example, this word prakriti. Pra means expanding. You've heard of prana, ever expanding, prana, and prakriti. Kriti is form. So the prakriti is the myriad expanding forms of nature, constantly increasing, constantly moving outward, constantly changing and moving. So this is prakriti is also matter. Its constitutional identity appears in matter in our physical body. So it is a manifested reality. It's not an unmanifested reality, which is the pre-existing Purusha. But let's not think about that too much now. We're
Yeah.
focusing on Prakriti and Vikriti. So Prakriti is the creation, it is nature, it is will. We have willed ourselves. So that's very important in the conception that we, our individual soul, has willed a place in the human incarnation, which in itself is very mystical and very privileged throughout the creation to be incarnated through the union of the mother's egg and the father's sperm to imprint the soul at that particular time. And you are a student of Jyotish, of the astrology, the mathematics of when we're born, each muhurta, each moment as time passes. You are also very interested, keen student of Jyotish to know, first of all, about today's transiting planetary reality under good auspices for this dialogue, especially about reproduction, Venus.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Mhm.
And so the Prakriti is formed through the will of our soul to journey into this particular era of incarnation, together with the trappings of the lifespan, how many breaths are expected to be spent before they're completed, and then the retraction, death, will occur. And then, of course, the physical tissues are no longer needed, so they shrink away and eventually disintegrate into ash.
But Jaishriji, so basically, I show often people this tapestry behind me. I don't know if you guys see that red one right behind me with the two serpents. You see how it's running. That particular tapestry is from Peru, but I do understand that almost every civilization understood the concept of the main nadis, the fire and water lines, and the mother and the father, and the feminine and the masculine, and this imprint. So what you are implying, and what we understand in Ayurveda, is that we are in some control of this information package. Would you agree?
I would say absolute control. In other words, we're fully responsible for all the results of our life. If we go through an immature phase of blaming others or criticizing others or criticizing God or feeling sorry, then that just shows that the soul is in a realization process. It's not really reborn to this caduceus, the double-headed serpent that is symbolic of generating the chakra system, precipitating the physical body from the ethers into manifested earth element. So, yes, it starts as a single cell meeting another cell, and then there is the cell division and cell division, and before we know it, there's a tiny little zygote that is going to attach to the uterine wall and very slowly generate itself with full consciousness, by the way, not necessarily memory or awareness, but certainly consciousness of its destiny, because we know our own will.
Mm.
Sometimes we might ask, well, why was I born now? Well, because it's suited to the needs of the soul's journey at this time.
So the soul has that innate higher level of intelligence and understanding, obviously, that it understands what it needs, and then it creates that form where it can, I suppose, fulfill that mission. Hmm?
I think so. That is to say, the soul, the Atma, being all knowing and already realized and already at one with the divine eternity, has in now as an incarnation mechanism generates its mind. So mind, yes, is going to then precipitate the body, the nature of the body, the weaknesses or kavagunyas that are going to unfold as time itself unfolds. And this is where the astrologer can predict certain disease states and can suggest mitigating factors to reduce any gallows to a pinprick.
So, for our audience, just to summarize a little bit, and I always talk to my Vibe Tribe, whether on YouTube or on my Facebook page, about all of these matters, and on Instagram. And I often talk about genetics versus genetics, and why is the Constitution, I feel it as someone that used to be in law for 22 years of my first career, the Constitution is the word. Why is it so serious? Oh my God, it's my constitution. Why should we know about our constitution? And how do you feel that that information benefits the average human right now that's watching this and will watch this recording? How would you explain to them, why do you need to know your constitution?
Good question, because Prakriti is the blueprint, it is the genetic factor, it is the baseline for our health. When the conception takes place, there is balance in that very small group of cells that's ever increasing now, that is going to be unfolding its consciousness through the mind, through the intellect, through the physical manifestation of nervous system, eyeballs, digestive system, etc. So Ayurveda, of course, is the science of everything that can go wrong with that process and end up in vikruti, or the current state of the dosha, which is altered by the factor of time. So Prakriti, the constitution, is that baseline to which we can always go back to see what is our personal balance, what is it that is our goal, our aim is to be true to ourselves, to be simply ourselves, not with other veils such as disease, symptoms, disturbances, misunderstandings, diversions from the remembrance of the divine.
So once we understood our constitution again, which again I just want to emphasize to our viewers all the time, that this is a blueprint determined at conception in that moment, which is such a powerful thought. I want people to really sit with that thought in that very moment, that information package, and I call it a bio-spiritual database. It's like a chip. It's like that flash drive that is inserted into this physical form. The original creation, once this understood as a physiological tendency, right? How do we use this information? Like translate it down to the five elements. Let's talk about the Pancha Mahabhuta there for a moment,
Okay,
and then
yes.
the doshas.
Very good. So Panchamahabhutas, the five great constructing elements of the universe, which are, of course, ether, the akash, the space, and then further precipitation. This is a precipitation model, denser and denser. Uh, that there's air element, which stands more for electrical energy, so nervous system coordinations like that. Then the fire element, which is transformative. Any fire or heat will transform energy from one state of matter to another. So we look at food becomes our body and then mind. We also know that the image enters the eyes and becomes named and then memorized, right? These are very instantaneous processes, but we transform from the image into your name, into your context, and all the attendant information. So now fourth of the five elements is water. So water is responsible for all chemical transformations. It is the universal chemical solvent. And so water element is where the um, uh, plasma or beginning digestive processes have their home in the water element. Then because we have saliva, digestive juices, etc. Then fifth and probably most measurable, easily measurable, is earth element. How tall we are, how much we weigh, what is our form, what is the color of the various parts, hair, tongue, eyes, bowel movement, uh, so that you see earth element then will be easily qualified and quantified. So
Very
these
well.
yeah, so these five, they will appear in you mentioned the all important tridosha, the vata, pitta, and kapha. So these three are very important basic terms to understand when venturing into an Ayurveda study or thought process, which is that ether element and air element, atomic energy and electrical energy, combine to be dominant in the phenomenon called vata. Now, all five elements exist in all three doshas, but they do have a dominance. So we're discussing about the dominance. It's not that they exist by themselves independently, it's certainly an integrated system. That's why we say integrative medicine. But the idea is that these two called vata, the people who are born with vata constitution do have more of these energies. That is to say, they may be thinner, skinnier. They may be more quick to change. They may be having dry skin, dry bones, dry uh, humor, even. And then they are also very creative and very connected to the source of poetry, the source of art, the source of music, for example. So these Vata people tend to be very artistic in expression, personal expression. And they tend to be very sensitive as well, heat sensitive, cold sensitive. So, like that, we can understand how the constitutional dominance of the person really affects their sensitivities in the world, their proneness as well, disease proneness in the world.
I
So
love how you explain this because this is exactly what I would like to hear when I actually prompted this question, as well as my audience, where they translate all of these words that we use in Sanskrit or just in general term in Ayurveda. Even people ask me what Ayurveda is, like, do you know what I mean? Like, now this translates into a real, more tangible, perceivable idea of what's behind the elements, how they show up, right?
Yeah, so now we're going to switch our attention to Pitta dosha. So Pitta dosha is mostly fire element and water element, although again all five appear in Pitta, but just recessively. And the dominant factor with Pitta people is that they are more fiery. They generally have good digestion, but they're very prone to digestive disturbances. then they also tend to leadership, and they tend to want to organize things. So they're very good librarians. They're very good in keeping order in the home, and they can get angry if the fork is not in the right place. And I can't find it because somebody else put it in a wrong place. So they're very fixated with right and wrong. So they make good lawyers. They
I
make good.
wouldn't know that idea. No, not at all.
Well, this is the a legal mind has to be very, very well organized. You can't have a disorganized mind as you can for an artist, right? Somebody who leaves their towel right on the bathroom floor. Oh, I forgot.
No, don't even go there. So now, you guys, I just want to insert, because this is exactly appropriate for me to say how I personally feel I benefited from this amazing ancient wisdom that is truly, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, the greatest blessing that happened to me in this vessel. Okay, because once I understood myself from these perspectives, that understanding, that knowledge, that knowing about myself allowed me to compute myself better and
Yes, absolutely.
recalibrate myself better, right? Because if we
Absolutely.
don't know, how can we fix? How can we correct? How can we modify? How can we work with something we don't know of? And we all want to achieve things and use big words like use your heart frequency, but people don't know what that means really at the end. Or connect with your inner child. How am I going to connect with that inner child? I don't even know anything about myself. How do I know? So this is how you can really reverse engineer, right?
Yes,
Yourself,
yes,
right?
absolutely. I think it is the basic foundation of knowing ourselves. Yes, to know ourselves, a very ancient teaching of wisdom. So let us think now about kapha dosha, because kapha is primarily expressing the qualities of water and earth elements. So these people are very stocky, solid, thick, heavy. They're more prone to overweight, whereas Pitta person is rather average in weight and in many ways average statistically. But the Kapha person is slower to act. They do prefer sweet things. They're very compassionate and forgiving in nature. And they are very reliable for that as well. So if the appointment is for 10 o'clock, it will be exactly 10, even a few minutes early. And we all have all three of these in our constitution. It's a question of what are the dominances and what is our personal balance from the time of conception to be the at the optimum function.
So good. So we talked about the five elements. We of course talked about the constitution, which is at conception, which is a blueprint. We talked about why it's important. Why do we want to understand these elemental balances? Would you agree that all of us have a very unique combination of these elements, like maybe even as unique as our fingerprint?
Yeah, the uniqueness of each person and the universality of each person is very a very interesting study, because yes, the no snowflake is like another. It is a wondrous pondering to think about this uniqueness, that we are unique. We're not anybody else. We are only responsible for ourselves. And we have unique gifts that do not appear in any other person in this combination and permutation. So truly, we have nobody to be jealous about or to compare with. We have nobody to, uh, uh, compare what is right and wrong. We have our own totality within us. If the entire universe exists within each person, then we do have all the answers within. The blueprint is within.
It is mesmerizing. I mean, I have been only in this vessel, anyways, about 5 years ongoing in Ayurveda. So I'm very novice in this vessel, but I also understand actually now in my soul growth journey that I have been with Ayurveda before in previous vessels. It's almost like you got to recalibrate yourself to a certain bandwidth to actually get that transmission again. And it's all gonna come back, right? As a knowing. So what happens when Vikruti comes about? What happens when we deviate away from that original blueprint?
Well, let's think about from birth, first of all, what can happen. Because as soon as we're born, naturally, the nurses and doctors, midwives, they're going to be very careful about what happens to the child, protected from temperature, so it doesn't get too hot, too cold, protected from being separate from the mother, developing loneliness or isolation. Uh, they take care as well that the child is managed in a very regular basis, that their hunger is taken care of so that their body can begin to operate also regularly. So regularity is a very important feature of health. I don't mean regimented. I mean within an hour or so, bedtime, meal times. So there's a little flexibility, but we're not skipping bedtime, lunchtime. These will result in disturbances, the Vikruti. So let's say the child is a few months of age and the mother takes the child out to shopping. So let's say it's COVID time and child contracts COVID. Now they still have immune gamma globulin from the birth and from breastfeeding. So chances are they may just get a little sniffle and not sick at all. But let's say the child has had weakened conditions and gets a full blown viral infection, then this can have really serious lasting damage. So this also belongs to Vikruti. So as time passes, the conditions of exposures, uh, childhood experiences, uh, life experiences as time goes on, then all these are influencing the inner reality. So in adolescence, everybody wants to discover sex, sexuality, because it's a very primordial, fundamental aspect of our being. Are we born female, male, or somewhere in between, which is discovered to be much more common than was ever thought in the 30s, 40s, and even 50s. Medical science used to, you know, alter these at birth. They would notice perhaps that the child has two genders, but has not informed the parents. And so the discovery comes later during the teenage years. So this is the time where we're questioning about sexuality, male, female, and the relationship between uh, Ida and Pingala channels, which are the right and left nostril channels, right being the heating channel, more male energy, and female channel left side being more cooling. So the union together has to be very coordinated dance so that the life is happy. We're neither too hot nor too cold. And so these are sort of basic examples, but let's say as well there's a childhood disease, polio or an ADHD. Then we look to all the gestational influences, perhaps vaccine influences after birth or during the gestation, and see what is it that has affected. Or in the case of, say, trisomy 21, Down syndrome, then there is, at the time of conception, already the situation was imprinted exactly then. My nephew is Down syndrome, and he says, me perfect Down syndrome.
Mm.
See?
Wow. I I'm very interested now that we're talking about actually this and with the children or childhood issues. What would you say happen when a baby is born with an immediate, ailment, or what I'm saying? Like what happens then? Like what's why? What happens? It
Yeah,
was immediate, like at birth, the baby's born and there's already an identifiable diagnosed something that's there.
yes. Yeah, so congenital conditions, yes, we have to look to it's complex, but essentially we have to look to the karmas, the law of cause and effect. Uh, Before the conception, at the conception, during the gestation, the conditions of birth, what are the comings and goings of these events, and therefore we can track how, but can we track why? We have to understand that there is a bigger picture with the law of cause and effect that is guiding each of us. And it's a very fundamental question of humanity is why? Why me? Why am I suffering? Why am I suffering now? And these are the inquiries that will get us through to discover the design of the creation, the design of our place and role in the creation, and how somehow it is perfect. These realizations come slowly, not right away, because first we have the grief stage, the anger stage, the rejection stage. The takes time to come to acceptance and understanding and realization. But time is a factor. This realm is governed by time, and Vikruti is a function of time.
So Vikriti is our imbalance of the doshas, which is subject to time. Is that what you're saying?
It is our Prakriti of the moment. So, how the Prakriti has morphed into something changed or altered at the present time. So, Vikriti means the current state of the dosha.
So that brings me to a really big question. How do you feel, or what we would say to this audience as to why Ayurveda and this ancient wisdom, which by the way is the oldest holistic healing system of science known to mankind, at least to my best knowledge, is why is Ayurveda different than, let's say, Western integrative medicine?
Well, it's the codification in the matrix of the Sankhya philosophy, which is the philosophy of the great sage Kapila, and describing the nature of the creation, the timing of the creation. And through Samkhya philosophy, we are going to find the answers to this, which is, these are deep answers. It's not that we can just ask the question and find some superficial explanation. We have to find an explanation that really explains everything, all of nature, all of time, something unchangeable, which is, yes, Ayurveda medical science. It is devoted to the knowledge of how to achieve a long life, a successful life, to fulfill the purpose of life, being the self realization, God realization. So that purpose is the same for everyone, even though we may have our own profession, our own worldly purpose and role, which is by no means diminished or minuscule or unimportant, not. It is very important. It's important to us. It's important to our family, our identity, our ahankar, which also implies our immunity. Ahankar, the self identification, is very linked to the cellular immunity, each cell having its own containing of all these universal components, along with all the aspects of and capacity for realization, self-realization. A liver cell knows that it's a liver cell. It should not migrate to try to become a brain cell. It must be true to itself.
Right. Isn't that amazing? Authentic alignment is where it's at. I always used to say that I never got into trouble for lying much, but I did get into trouble for telling the truth. And so now that I'm 50, actually one, I think, turning in a few days, I realize that authentic alignment has always been something that seemed to have been the cornerstone of my purposeful living, right? So um tell me about swasta. Tell me about that for a moment.
Beautiful. Now, sva is to be seated in the self. Svasta means health. It means that sva, the self, is true to itself. It does not pretend anything other than itself. It is also in absolute alignment with its own being. So, being becomes the key word, not doing. Many times, accomplishments are related to doing, which engage cause and effect, of course. Now, being does not engage cause and effect. So, when the Buddha says, be desireless, then that means that we don't attract suffering to ourselves. In a state of pure being, with the sva seated in itself, then this is described as perfect health in the medical scriptures.
So
A
what
state of
happens
being.
when the ego, or like, or I'll translate it to the audience, like what happens when or she is not in alignment with the higher self, with that oneness, with, I kind of like to relate it to the quantum field where there is this big pure consciousness that we're all part of, and there is that higher level of conscious, I mean, there's the higher self that abodes there, and then there's this separated entity of a soul particle that I'm experiencing life with in this vessel. What happens when those two are not jiving? They're not in harmony.
You know, the grammarians have tried to answer this as well, because in every field of endeavor, we have the same questions, the same inquiries, and the same answers ultimately, whether we're looking through mathematics, physics, cookery, caring for children, any endeavor, we come to the same thing. So grammarians have said that self with a lowercase s is our self identity. Self with a capital S is that unified field that we're all part of, and the realization process of uh, removing the barriers to that unity or unified field. That's why yoga, unity, is yoking, joining, merging, becoming one. That's why yoga became so popular, because it is really a precursor step to understanding and experiencing not just somebody else's theory, but experiencing that this individual self belongs as a critical part of the entire creation, and that all its beingness matters.
That's so profound, because the other day I was going to formulate a sentence to this person. We had a conversation, and they're doing a lot of reading about their healing journey after a major heart surgery. And I said to this individual, I said, what I love about Ayurveda and the vibratory value and the frequency and understanding consciousness and working energy and all of that is that we need to experience it. That you can read on it a lot. There's a lot of knowledge. But I think that where we are at with Ayurveda is really to experience it. Experiential knowing is where then the real juice and the fruition will be.
Yes, it's definitely a meditation experience that will bring us to leave off the outer entanglements and start to begin to realize the inner light as the permanence. And because we all want to understand how to live well, die well, not by disease, but by the breaths being completed, and to have happiness, joy, bliss, contentment, equanimity. So these spiritual qualities are what is developed in meditation. So it's said to be the first and last medicine of Ayurveda, is meditation.
So, how do you feel about Praina Parada? That is another thing that I like to talk about.
So the Prajna Parad is the Mercury, the Bud, the intellect, the discrimination. And this is when we know something and don't live up to it. So we know it's best to be a non smoker, but we persist. So this is translated as crimes against reason, or disregarding the innate knowing. So that's just an immature phase. It's okay, no judgment. We will live up to it sooner or later by simply remembering it, because the forgetting faculty, which belongs to ignorance, and this belongs to immaturity. So it's part of the journey that we have immature phase, and we have maturing phase, and we have matured phase. So this is part of it, and we're governed by time. So that's why Vikriti is a function of time.
Wonderful. And in closure to our conversation today, because you can rest assured that I will invite you back to talk about some other juicy stuff like karma, for example. But in closure for today, my really dearest topic to my heart, and it seems that it found me not as much as I wanted it, is to talk to people about inherited diseases and inherited disease pathways. And I have been doing a lot of research, and as you know, I am an avid water researcher, and so connecting with my favorite element of water and inherited diseases. But from you, I would love to hear, how do you feel about the inherited disease pathways, as in the relation of Ayurveda's understanding and genetics versus epigenetics, and also the ever so annoying, words of, oh, I have inherited this problem. How do
You
you
see,
feel about that?
these inherited diseases, so called, they're really modern research gives a great insight into this. So I myself am the candidate of inherited migraine headaches, which started predictably at age 17 and carried on until my mid 30s, till I came to Ayurveda, till I switched my diet, lifestyle, core beliefs, began implementing brand new lifestyle changes, and was just operating on a whole series of misunderstandings, which again is fine. It's just that it's a phase we have to go through to suffer enough to really ask the right questions. Now, so let's say, for example, neuromuscular diseases, if they are caught early enough with Ayurveda treatment, the Panchakarma you mentioned earlier, then they can be reversible. And modern science shows how telomeres are the ending points of the RNA, DNA, and they can be adjusted and cleansed through these. It's such a deep science of cleansing and rejuvenation, and it has survived so far intact in some places, rare places, to be available today, that the knowledge is still available.
So
So
this ancient technology, I actually participated in a cacao ceremonial, wonderful ceremony actually, where an Aztec ceremonial master explained also about technology, that people always think nowadays that there was some sort of a built thing or a technological thing, but ancient technology is the knowledge of all of this, the fire line, the water line, the elements of all the civilizations understood this. So would you say that in Ayurveda, with Ayurveda, we would be able to make a huge difference in the collective consciousness by actually healing people more than a more restricted allopathic medicine, perhaps?
well, I do believe that Ayurveda is the future medicine, and that an integrative phase is the way of wisdom for our current time. And our Share Ayurveda conference in 2023 in University of British Columbia had that very theme. Ayurveda as integrative medicine. So, yes, I've studied enough to know that it is the way of the future and that it does engage cause and effect. So, if we have the effects that we have nowadays, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, so many widespread societal public health diseases that are very costly, by the way, are certainly remediable through the very law of cause and effect that is its vehicle for manifesting. But it's because of our collective belief systems and understandings that are, of course, limited, and our collective consciousness is part of it. So as we expand as a whole with group meditations, with each person being successful in healing themselves first, self-healing first, and maintaining that self-healing, which is an everyday business. It's a lot of investment each and every day to engage cause and effect for health, for healthy living, for healthy outcomes. First of all, for self and the family, and then by extension into the public health domain, and of course, the global humanity, which is suffering tremendously from avoidable diseases. But this is the time when people become awakened through these phases of suffering, disease states.
Exactly. And so it's almost like I think that we need to experience a certain level of suffering so that there's enough torque, fire energetics that makes us do differently. Would you agree?
I think I don't know why suffering is linked to realization. I just know that it is.
Mm.
In my case, for example, I thought that I was leading a very healthy life with fresh organic yogurt, fresh organic blueberries, local organic honey, mixing it all together. And I did not know it was a toxic combination. And migraines persisted for years because of this
Golden what
eroding.
you're saying. I
Uh-huh.
love hearing it because this is why all of the viewers of this interview and chat with Dr. Jaisri Lambert, I want you guys to take this away that when you think you're eating healthy and you're doing all the good, see the keywords, organic, local, seasonal, all of that. Yes. And yet it might not be what's good for you, right? Or for your Vikruti, or even for your Prakriti. So this is why you need to know your basic blueprint. I think we could just take it all home in a big circle now and understand that if you know these, then you will be able to find your personalized health solution. So I think that's where I am at. This is what helped me personally when nobody else could help me, when the doctors told me everything was okay with me, and it wasn't because I had panic attacks and I had two life-threatening anaphylactic attacks. On the one of them, they had to resuscitate me. So how could you tell me I'm okay, right? So yes, this is definitely the journey. So I can't wait to have another conversation with you about karma, which a lot of people are so scared of. Like it's just like they go beyond understanding, and then they think it's got to do with religion and all of that. And they even think Ayurveda sometimes is a religion, which it isn't. And so let's make that very clear, right? And talk more about this ancient technology, which we will with Jeshi Chi in the future as well as many other wonderful key players that I have from all these different civilizations where they actually have a serious lineage of healers or shamanic backgrounds, or they understand this ancient technology about healing. And I think this is where we're at the 21st century. We got to expand our mind. We have to have different, what I want to say is language code to understand ourselves, from a completely different perspective, which will be much more successful in healing our own self, which then will affect and impact the collective consciousness, which then, if we can just do that, then it'll be all better for everybody, won't it? Right? So I am so honored that you were here today. I was just like feeding on every word of yours. And so I want to tell you guys that I will be putting Dr. Jaisri Lambert's information down below when I post this video, so you can find her. She practices here in British Columbia in the Lower Mainland, Canada, and globally, as well as we will continue this conversation a bunch. And I want you guys to learn about Jaisri's Care Foundation, which is a federally registered nonprofit organization here in Canada. And in truly closure, because you guys know I can talk a lot, I would love Jaisri to mention a few words about her baby, the Care Foundation, and what we should know about this foundation and how we can help your agenda and projects.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity. Yes, the Canada Ayurveda Research and Education Foundation. So, CARE Foundation is an acronym. The foundation was registered in 2017 in Ottawa. So we are up to date and transparent in all our reporting. We have nonprofit status. So there are particular requirements as far as our activities. And we have four main founding activities. Uh, the multiple sclerosis and Ayurveda, which is a program that's already launched and complete, all volunteer. Then the second is the research portal for Canadian doctors and healthcare practitioners to the vast storehouse of research in Ayurveda, operated through Ayush Ministry of India, which is the official ministry for Ayurveda and related sciences. Then we have as well the Elder Home Care Aid Training Program, which is my favorite. That one's going to take a lot of funding for hiring the best people and training our elder care aides, home care aides, for going into the home and caring for elders in mostly Indo-Canadian, but also Asian Canadian families, families where they do not want to place the parent in a care home, but they want to keep the parent at home as long as possible under experienced care. And we also have one that's at the verge of funding right now. Our proposal is maturing this summer, 2024, which is the Ayurveda classification of local medicinal plants. So we're selecting a number of plants that are local and available to us to understand the Ayurveda classification, which is a much broader way to understand the plant medicine than just uses or descriptions. So I
That's
hope that helps
amazing.
to understand.
The usage of the plants, and we're here in the Northern Pacific for those of you who view us from other parts of the world, and we understand about the beautiful plants and plant medicine. And I also talk about this on my channels quite a lot, that the source matters. And the closer you can source something, the higher electrical vibratory value that plant actually has. And so that is absolutely essential that we look to local you know, plants in our environments, and not just let's say import from afar, for just because of the frequency value alone. I will be actually going in a couple of weeks to the herbal conference that's going to take place on Vancouver Island. I'm super excited. With a couple of colleagues, we will be going and seeing and learning all about the North Pacific plants and all of the advancements in this department. And for for one last moment, I also want to give the honor to Jaisri here and talk about her Ayurveda consulting and seminars, which is her business, her other baby, other than the Care Foundation. And in here, in this space, you have got a lot of classes that you're running. Would you tell us, let's say, the next few classes that you're running in this space? And I will also link below so that you guys can register for those classes. I know that Jaishriji will have a cooking class coming up or a pulse class, pulse diagnosis. Oh, I'm dying to do it and I cannot do it this time. Tell us about a couple of words about your classes,
Oh,
please.
yes. Oh, yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. So, the Ayurveda seminars and consulting is my livelihood website, and that is for, yes, classes. So, we have the Sattvic cooking class coming up in June 8th and 9th. So, that is, we were adopting the vegetarian diet in the 70s, and then in the 90s we adopted the doshic diet, vata pitta kapha. Now is the sattvic diet for peaceful outcomes, for mind body outcomes that give us the ability to meditate and stay uh, adhere to a long life, etc. Then the solstice weekend, when you're going to the herbal conference, that weekend each summer I do the pulse assessment class, 5 days retreat, Gurukula style. People come here, stay with me, stay in nearby, and we have an entire immersion into pulse assessment, which is a rare skill, a highly valuable skill for diagnosis of disease. And then I have as well in the fall coming up the mentorship program. So every spring semester and fall semester, run an 8-week mentorship for senior students and early practitioners who need support in case management. And we apply the Ashtavida Pariksha, which is the classic eightfold assessment tool of Ayurveda in today's cases, real cases that come from the participants. And that way, we want to strengthen the community and allow people to become leaders in due course in the profession of Ayurveda clinical practice.
This is an amazing opportunity for all of you guys who have been studying Ayurveda or did some sort of a course here and there, or if you're an early practitioner or you're someone like me who I've got health counseling finished but not yet clinical, specialty, and you're kind of in between there. There are so many other, areas of Ayurveda that you can actually study here with Jaishree Ji, and that is amazing. I'm going to go and link all of those below. And for today, I will be closing this recording and this interview and chat, and I will be inviting you back very, very shortly. And I can't wait to talk to you more about karma. And thank you so much for being here today. It's like, for me, it's just like I'm in heaven, feeding my mind and feeding my soul, with this nutritional information is, whew, it's just buzzing around. So thank you so much.
My
And
great pleasure.
thank you for everybody watching. See you guys soon. And I always have a thing of where to find the recording button. Here you go. Ciao, you all.